Hello, listener. You will be able to enjoy Cosmic Motion even if we're discussing a movie you have not yet seen, but as we're talking about many elements of this film and will be spoiling it, if you'd rather not know anything in advance, watch the movie first and then come back and join our discussion. And now, on to the show. Welcome to episode 20 of Cosmic Motion, an audio program where filmmakers of all kinds discuss motion pictures, good, bad, ugly, and always interesting throughout the cinematic cosmos. We're recording this on March 30th, 2025. I'm here with my conspiracy-laden co-host, Colin Dixon. He's a multimedia editor and all-around friendly guy, or is he?
Well, I'm here with El mio fratello di un'altra madre, Billiam Boudel, who is a director, actor, editor, raconteur, Tor Johnson, Tori spelling, all the Tors.
Thank you. This week, our guest is Matthew S. Robinson. Matthew is an award-winning filmmaker and playwright. When he's not studying a niche moment in history or preparing for his next film, he can be found screaming at the Cincinnati Bengals through his TV. He has been a panelist at Midsummer Scream for the past 2 years. Most recently, Matthew has directed the drama feature film Magdalena, directed the dark romantic comedy Dog Days, and also wrote and directed the Giallo tribute short film Bloody Bloody Coda. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be on here.
Absolutely, man. I want to ask you about Bloody Bloody Coda, but before we get there, I want to start at the very, very beginning.
Oh wow!
You're a young, impressionable child. You're sitting in a movie theater, or maybe in front of your TV. Maybe one of your parents is there, or a sibling, and you're watching something, and it's stuck in your mind ever since. Can you tell us about that?
Oh yeah. I can tell you the movie that made me want to make movies. And that was Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back. You know, I'd always liked movies and telling stories, but Star Wars made me want to write films. I was just so blown away. I was like 7 maybe. And I was so blown away that the bad guys could win. You know, I just thought that was so subversive, you know.
Right.
You're
breaking the rules. What's going on?
What's happening? You know, everyone's telling Luke, don't go to fight Vader. You're going to lose. And then he does it. And you think somehow Luke is going to find it in him to win. And he doesn't. He gets his butt kicked. He finds out he's his dad. He's having a terrible day.
Whoa. Spoilers.
Sorry.
Sure.
I forgot this.
No, I'm kidding.
But no, I remember when that movie, my dad owned it, of course, on VHS. And I just was like, what in the world did I just witness?
Yeah.
So that was the movie where I knew eventually I'm going to work in this business.
Really? Right then? And you were 7 or so?
Yeah. You know, I thought I was going to be a writer, you know, because you're a kid. You know, you don't know how much it takes to just do one profession well. But I really thought I was going to write scripts and be a creative writer and also be an archaeologist. So I was going to, you know, sell some scripts on the side, do my archaeology, you know, and... And that was going to be my life.
Was that from Indiana Jones, the archaeology?
It was a little bit. Indiana Jones.
So many have been inspired.
It was just like, this is so... Indiana Jones, I think, in Jurassic Park.
Okay.
Those two, even though paleontologists, I know it's not the same, but the idea of digging up something, discovering
artifacts.
That world.
Yeah.
I just thought that was such a cool... And I was like into archaeology. I had the Smithsonian magazine. The Smithsonian had a kid magazine called Dig. Magazine, and I used to read that cover to cover multiple times an issue. Like I would read an issue out, and I was just like, "This is what I'm gonna
Oh, wow.
That's what I'm going to do. And I guess I kind of do that still. I mean, with research for scripts, whether it's real science fiction or historical, it is still a lot of archaeological work.
You're a story archaeologist.
Yeah.
You're using your camera to uncover the strata of people's lives.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I think.
Well, so it sounds like you kind of came to it through writing. Is that how you came to film? Like you started writing and that's how... Tell us a little bit about that.
I always liked writing. I used to write little stories for my family and friends to read. I'd write it literally with crayon. And I would get brass tacks. I would get the 3-hole puncher and I put the brass tacks in because I made it feel like it was bound and, more real. And I passed it along to my friends and my family. And it was all like basically, because I had no idea how to create original stories. So it was all fan fiction of movies I had seen, essentially, like Land Before Time or Sonic the Hedgehog or something, but I couldn't draw. Still can't to this day. My storyboards look atrocious. But I did this whole abstract thing, particularly with like Sonic, where I would just draw like kind of balls or squares of color, very Mondrian, like Matisse kind of style. Because like, not that I knew who those people were when I was a kid, but I just was like, okay, Sonic's a blue fast ball, so Sonic will always be represented by this kind of blue like aura. Yeah, and like so people, reading it and like the story with text would describe what was happening. Yeah, it was very abstract.
That's fantastic.
But I loved it. I would sneak paper and crayon and I just write during nap time instead of sleep. I would just write these stories and these adventures and everything. It's probably why I'm not tall to this day, because I skipped out on nap time to do all this. Didn't get that good growing bones because I was like, let me see how I can do this.
I'm not sure how that works, but could be. Did you pick up a camera at any point? Were you like, well, maybe if I'm writing all these scripts and stories and drawing all these stories, like maybe I take my dad's camera and I go shoot with somebody. If that happened, when did it happen?
It did not happen until I was about 12.
Yeah, that's
good. Yeah, I was still very into archaeology. My parents took me to an event I'm from DC, but I moved to Cincinnati when I was about 9. And we went to this place called the Aronoff Center. Okay. It's like the big cultural arts center in Cincinnati. Okay. And James Cameron and his team were there to talk about the documentary filmmaking of underwater archaeology. And I was there to learn more about the technology. How does that work? What tools they use. I was by far the youngest person in that audience.
That's so cool.
It was really cool.
And James Cameron's literally there.
James Cameron was there, and also one of his producers, and then also a really hardcore underwater archaeologist person who I was there to see that person.
Right. You're like, who's James Cameron?
Like, I was like, cool, James Cameron. All right. Like, almost none of James Cameron's movies at the time were any movies that I was allowed to watch. I think I was allowed to watch Terminator 2 maybe when it was on TV, so all the bad words were edited out and everything. Then I could see Terminator 2. But I do remember someone saying, like, does anyone have any questions? And all these hands went up and they were saying, any questions that are not about the film Titanic? And then like half of them went down.
But your hand stayed up.
My hand stayed up. And I feel bad. I always say I wanted to meet James Cameron and tell him, like, he was probably so excited that there was this little kid who was just so into archaeology. Yeah. And coincidentally enough, that conversation with him that night, hearing his talk about the filmmaking process of underwater documentaries, made me want
to be a filmmaker.
And pick up a camera.
That's great. That's great. Well, maybe you can roll them into one somehow.
I would love that.
Yeah,
I would love that.
Whether through narrative or documentary.
Yeah. Gosh, in a perfect dream world, both. Most of my white whale stories I want to tell as a filmmaker are historical fiction.
Okay.
Darren Aronofsky already did that.
Right.
He covered it. All right.
It's
different.
Yeah, it was different. It wasn't what I expected.
I didn't even see that movie, actually.
No comment.
I understand the discourse around it. That's where I'll leave it. I understand the discourse around it.
And of course, we're talking about Black Swan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Okay. Just to be clear.
Yeah, when I was a kid, we made a lot of like kind of exploring videos. Like we had some woods, and we called ourselves the Dirty Creek Brothers. So it was like
that's great.
It was great.
You need to keep that name for your company. That's fantastic.
Or at the very least, your bluegrass band,
the Dirty Creek Brothers. That is great.
It was great. We were such nerds. I didn't think of it at the time, but we were such nerds. Most of my early films are experimental and like kind of documentary because it was still that very much the archaeology kind of thing. So we were testing. We had a science kit, and we were testing the acidity and the cleanliness of our creek, our local creek.
Wow.
And we were documenting it. We had a composition notebook when we would go sledding when it would snow, we had different hills in the neighborhood, and we had a composition book that was filled with the sleds, and we were figuring out how fast, what was the fastest hill, what was the most dangerous hill, the steepest hill. We're doing measurements, we're doing speed trials, and we're recording like ourselves almost killing each other, like just because we were trying to figure out how can we jump over this creek. We had all these things that we were obsessed with.
Little adventure scientists.
We were.
Great.
So like all my old videos, which unfortunately I've never been able to find anything from before the age of like 15, 16.
Were they VHS? Were they high 8?
I believe the first ones were VHS, and then eventually I got a high 8 camera, but up to that point it was all VHS. So some of them didn't even have sound, and some of the early ones on sound because we didn't know that you needed to have sound on some of these cameras.
Well,
they don't have a microphone.
Yeah, sounds overrated.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, we walked down to the Family Dollar. They had the recordable VHS. We slap them in and we get some stuff. So, a lot of those old videos, we would put them on, and then we had a kit. We couldn't record live, but we would record in post our commentary over these videos.
That's so cool.
Which was, we were crazy people.
You need to find these videos, Matthew.
You need to find these
that
videos.
Sounds great.
But yeah, those evolved. Eventually, we started making short films that were proper. The first short film I ever made, which I do have still somewhere in Cincinnati, was a comedy called Soapbox. I got my friends together. None of us were actors, especially not myself. And it was about kids who inherited a failing soap company. They basically gave it as a tax write-off. There was some convoluted, I don't know business. I don't know. Like, I definitely didn't know when I was 16.
Sure.
But it was like some sort of thing where if they gave us the company, they would no longer have the debt. And so they give us this company, but we actually make it work. And so we were these kids who owned this soap factory in Cincinnati, Ohio. And it was super stupid. The actual episode itself was like 15 minutes, and then everything else was just like a very long theme song set to Hawaii 5-0 for some reason.
The old one? The
old Hawaii 5-0. For some reason, I, as a kid, was like, that should be our theme song.
I love it.
You got good taste.
I thought so.
What could you say? Did you ever go to Kings Island?
I did. I went to Kings Island. I'm glad you know about Kings Island. I did. I went to Kings Island.
I grew up all over the place. I had a weird itinerant childhood. One of the places is Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh, nice.
So close to Cincinnati. And people used to go to Kings Island all the time until I think eventually we got Kentucky Kingdom. People were going to that too, but I think Kings Island is still the superior. I don't know anything about it now. But.
I mean, it's no ARC experience, but sure, whatever.
Well, that is very fair.
Absolutely.
The ARC experience is great because if the flood comes again, you're in the best place to be.
All right, so you're making these, and then do you decide I'm going to go to film school? Is that what happens?
Yeah. At that point, I got pretty serious about it. I started making short films, a lot of comedies, action comedies with my friends.
Okay.
I almost went to the University of Toledo. Yep. Long story short, they sent me what my class schedule was going to be. This is like July before I go into school.
Right.
And I realized I am not going to learn how to be a filmmaker at the University of Toledo. I'm going to learn film critique, but I'm not going to be able to make films.
So,
I was like, I need to go to LA. So even though there was no school that was going to take me, I got rejected from USC and Howard and all these other places I thought about. I went to Santa Monica Community College, worked in their film and television department for 2 years, and then transferred to Pepperdine University. That's when I started going all in with film school. But it was a journey to get to that point. It was just making short films, eventually doing a lot of television, sports television, TV.
Yeah.
So I was all over the map with the stuff I was making. But it was all for me, just getting to hold a camera, getting to write, getting to direct was anything I got to do with that was good enough for me.
And what brought you to the giallo genre?
Oh, man. As a kid, you see those posters and they're just so fascinating.
I didn't see them as a kid. Where did you see them? Were they up in Cincinnati? Were they like, check out this Argento?
Pretty much.
Martino.
I mean, you go into like Hollywood Video or Movie Gallery and Blockbuster, and like they just had the posters up.
Okay.
And it's like, especially as like an 11, 12-year-old boy, like you see like these posters, these beautifully drawn like women, overflowing cleavage and everything. And I'm like, what's happening in this movie? I need to know. I mean, I was a scaredy cat of horror. I was a big scaredy cat.
I was too.
Oh, I was like, I felt my friends were so much more adult because they could watch. I was terrified of like
My
Nightmare on Elm
imagination
Street.
was it was too much affected by horror. Like I had to like put it aside for a while and then come back to it later.
Did you feel like you had like very vivid dreams after you
Oh,
saw a horror film?
I remember my dad was watching, I think it was Aliens, the second one,
yeah.
you know, maybe on TV or maybe, and I came in the room and I watched literally like 5 minutes maybe. Part of it was the scene where the pilot starts to take off in the transport to come
yes.
and the aliens behind her.
Yes.
I had nightmares just from like 5 minutes, just from that.
Sure.
So yeah, it was totally too much. My brain was like, whoa, I would have taken it and just, you know, I would have been totally traumatized. Who knows?
I know. I feel you. For me, it was John Carpenter's The Thing. And
Well, yeah.
it
Of
was
course.
so traumatizing. I saw because I had seen the original, Howard Hawks one, and that one didn't scare. I mean, the scene where he comes in the Hawks one,
When he throws his arm in and throws the door open.
that was scary, but
Yeah.
it was scary that I could handle.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, cool.
He's a big vegetable.
Yeah,
I could deal with
I was
this.
like, cool, whatever.
Yeah.
But when I saw The Thing, I just tried to stick it out because it was such a cool movie. I knew it was cool. I just couldn't. Like the dog scene really bothered me.
Yes.
But the scene, honestly, that got me, the scene where I was like, I'm out, I'm too scared, is when they walk in on the guy who's half turned.
Yes.
And they chase after him.
Yeah.
And then his hands all messed up and he
Yeah.
does that scream. Where
They
you
go
can-
in the snow and then they light him on fire and he
Yes.
screams. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even get to the scariest part, which was when they're on the couch. That scene with him just screaming in the mess up hand.
Yeah.
I was like, absolutely not. I'm out. I can't. I had
Bye.
nightmares. I had to like sleep with like a light on underneath like my covers and everything. I couldn't.
Totally.
But anyway, long story short, I know it was a little bit of a tangent, but I really loved the aesthetic of Giallo. And then my grandmother, God bless her soul, she would sneak me these. When we were staying over her house, she would sneak me these old Hammer and Giallo films because
Really?
she was really into them. She loved like the supernatural ones in particular, like Curse of the Werewolf, Blood from the Mummy's Tomb, you know, and they were technically PG. They were technically okay for me to watch.
Yeah.
So but she was always like, you know, don't tell your parents I showed you this, you know, or whatever. And it's like, and then these movies with these werewolves, and that somehow watching it with my grandmother made me a little less frightened.
Yeah. It was like a
of
good
it.
transition for you.
Yeah. But, you know, I just was the colors were so decadent. Everyone dressed very well. The camera was always doing something very interesting. A lot of stuff didn't have any mirrors and just, it just kind of fascinated me. It felt like I was like living in like a poem or a painting. You know, I didn't get to the very hardcore Giallo films early on, but like those stuck with me. So much to the point that my parents got me, which I still own, an Italian film poster's hardcover for Christmas one year.
Oh.
And man, I read that thing cover to cover. I
That's
just was
great.
like, what is happening in these films?
Yeah.
You know, so
There's a lot of great poster art. You're right. So tell us about Bloody Bloody Coda.
yeah, that was my tribute. I call it like Neo Giallo because it's not quite Giallo. I don't think we did enough crazy stuff. I didn't plan to do enough crazy. I wanted it to be my own. I didn't want it to be like just a cheap homage to Giallo, where it's just like we're gonna do the same things beat for beat that like Blood and Black Lace does. But
I was actually going to ask you if you had seen Blood and Black Lace as a young person or if it was later.
it was later. I think it was in college when I saw that.
Okay,
I think
okay.
I was in college when I saw a lot of Mario Bava's films because our library at Pepperdine had a bunch of his.
Because
Randomly.
his stuff is a bit softer. It's a bit more
Yeah.
PG, a lot of it, you know, like Black Sunday. Black Sabbath is a bit
were right.
stranger,
Yes.
where that
Yes.
might affect people more.
A little bit more.
Yeah.
A little bit more. You know, obviously I didn't watch a lot of Argento
Yeah.
growing up. I think the first Argento I saw as a kid was Suspiria, and that was when I was a teenager.
Oh, that's a pretty big one.
But it was just so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, and it's violent, but it's so like the blood looks so fake. It's so over the top that it doesn't disturb you in the same way I think as like a movie like The Thing would, where
Right.
it's just like, oh, okay, this is, you know, it's just viscera and everything.
Right.
I wanted to do that. I wanted to live in that world. So I had a friend's house who every single wall, I don't know why, but every single wall in their house was a different bold color. And I just thought this is a good place to shoot a Giallo because everywhere I go, I'm going to have something happening in the background for cheap. You know, we made it for only $6,000, you know, instead
Whoa.
of, yeah.
Great.
You know, so we didn't have to have all these like crazy lights
Yeah.
to get those vivid colors. It was already built into the house, you know, looking back on it, I wish I had about $4,000 more. I could have gone a couple more things, but lesson learned. But we got Gina Leno. She was one of the people I really wanted for that part, because she had been in like some horror films, and she had been in one of my big inspirations and one of my first big TV crushes. She was in Xena. She played a villain on an episode of Xena, and so I was like, oh, it would be so fun to work with her. And thankfully, she was available and she loved the script. And so she signed on to do it. I think if I didn't get Genia, I was going to probably go for someone like a Joan Severance. But I just wanted someone who had that look, that kind of very, for those who aren't initiated, Bloody Coda is about an aging opera singer who's having vocal cord surgery. And she has to rest her voice, and she's in a hideaway house. And if she makes any noise, she can destroy her singing voice forever. And she's starting to feel the pressure of getting older and younger talent coming in. So there's a lot going on with that. Yeah. And so I wanted a woman who was a little bit older, but still you could understand why she had this conflict in her. Jenna was perfect for it, and she just needed someone who's very expressive since they can't talk during
That's
this.
great. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, so it will be our company, Red Flag Media Productions. That will be our YouTube channel. So if you want to check it out, it's only 10 minutes.
Beautiful runtime.
It's just like with credits, 10 minutes. So,
fantastic. I love it. What film did you choose for today?
Oh, okay. So this is a fun giallo film that I had not seen, and it's called The Perfume of the Lady in Black.
Yeah, by Francesco Barilli. 1974.
Yeah, a really good time for giallo.
Absolutely. Do you want to do the, I know you speak a little Italian, Colin, do you want to tell us the title in Italian?
Oh, Il profumo della signora in nero.
There you go. There you go.
Well, Bill, do you have a synopsis you could drop
Check
on?
this out. Sylvia, played by Mimsy Farmer, is a scientist whose lover, friends, and neighbors drive her mad so that they can eat her.
I like it. Succinct.
And scene.
That is the plot of the movie.
That's the plot of the movie. I don't know what to tell you. We find out she's a scientist, and then shit goes sideways. I don't know. That's the movie.
Well, so full disclosure for Matthew, in our last episode, we also had a DC filmmaker who loves giallos, who
something about that city,
who chose why am I blanking on the name?
Yeah. Footprints on the Moon, 1975.
Yeah, which is mislabeled. It's not really
It's not a giallo.
Not really a giallo.
But
it's got a lot of connections to this.
It has so many connections. In that film, a woman thinks that strange things are happening to her, but she has mental health concerns, maybe schizophrenia. In The Perfume of the Lady in Black, 1974, a woman thinks strange things are happening to her, and she's right.
Right.
There's a conspiracy by her friends and neighbors to drive her mad so that she'll eventually kill herself so that they can eat her.
So is it I'm as familiar with giallo as the next guy, I guess. I've seen my share of the Mario Bavas and the Fulcis, but I'm not an expert. So I guess maybe I'd put to you, Matthew, is gaslighting women just a staple of the genre?
It is a lot. I mean, it is a lot because, giallo, yellow, and that's because they were the yellow books, which are usually very pulpy and very like erotic and all this other jazz, or violent. But I think there's this really good book that I actually had to write like a whole synopsis on for this old publishing magazine, coincidentally, which is probably how I fell deeper into love with giallo. But that talked about how giallo films were one of the few at the time in Italian cinema where women would often feel validated about their. So while the men are very much gaslighting the women, like as we find out in this movie, it typically turns out to be true. It typically turns out that that what the woman is thinking and worried about, everyone telling her, calm down, you're being hysterical. And she's like, no, I'm right. Yeah. Really, the coin toss with giallo films is if she's going to survive after finding out if it's all, everyone's against her.
Right.
I mean, and I would say that this is a bit more successful as a film than Footprints on the Moon, personally.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, well, certainly it's labeled correctly. I mean,
this is a giallo.
And it's got some of those familiar tropes. It's definitely a much more sexually charged film, much more violent.
Yeah.
It shows trauma from the past, in a very typical giallo kind of way.
Right. And it's got this supernatural angle and this color palette that kind of suits it in the familiar way. And even the score is doing more to flesh out the story than maybe Footprints on the Moon. But yeah, I mean, how did you feel about this one, Matt?
I liked it. I mean, it's not I wouldn't put it in my like top 5 giallo, but it was an entertaining watch. There's always something going on in this movie that's just like kind of interesting or weird or bizarre. You don't know if you have an unreliable narrator or not. So there's a lot of really cool kind of moments, and it's beautiful to look at. I mean, the set design and the camera, the use of mirrors and different colors to evoke emotions is really interesting, and it has a very interesting angle, a very interesting setup that stuck out to me. By the time it was over, you're like, this is definitely a giallo I would recommend to someone who's like maybe interested in the genre and seen a few but hasn't gone deep into it, because there's so many giallo tropes in this movie that you're like, okay, now you can see where like a lot of these things come from.
Yeah.
Right.
Going back to what you just said about the interesting setup, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you found interesting about it?
Yeah. 2 things. One is that, we talked about like, she's a scientist, but that has no factor into
No bearing.
like,
I repeat, no bearing.
Nope.
Which is like, when I remember seeing it, I was like, oh, that's pretty progressive that she has this very like intellectually heavy job that she's very good at. The movie goes out of its way to say.
Right.
And yet it has no bearing on the plot. Like it just is a kind of window dressing for who she is.
Yeah. It's like literally like a device for her boyfriend to get mad at her.
Right.
Right.
He's like, what, are you going to win a Nobel Prize? Come on.
Yeah. Women can't do that.
He what does he do? He just wants her to play tennis or something?
Yeah.
Like, your science stuff is getting in the way of our relationship.
Yeah, he's a real winner of a guy. Like, she's so enamored with him, and I'm like, but why? I mean, this dude, like, he doesn't support anything that you do.
Doesn't this happen all the time in reality, though?
This is also very true. This is also very, very true.
Yeah.
Also, there's a very interesting conversation early on with one. They have a bunch of Afro-Italians, which isn't something that you see very often in Italian cinema now. But the fact that it was in an Italian film in the mid 1970s, and even though the movie definitely plays it of like, oh yes, like, they're kind of foreigners in our land, so to speak. At least for the time, they are treated pretty respectably. And there's even a conversation they have, which of course plays into the end. But they plant seeds of how the movie's going to end in that conversation, which I thought was very different for movies of this time.
I'm going to read some of that, actually.
Oh, please.
Yeah. But actually, I also was going to say, are we sure that they're Afro-Italians, or are they actually like immigrants from Africa or visiting from Africa? Because I wasn't sure, because they were talking about Africa in a way that made it sound like they were actually living there and were born there. So I wasn't sure.
I wasn't sure either, because I actually looked up. I saw 2 different analysis of that scene.
Mm-hmm.
And on Wikipedia, they're considered Afro-Italians.
Okay.
But then an article I read from maybe it was Slash Film, but they called them immigrants from Africa. So I mean, when I watched it, I thought they were immigrants who had now become citizens of Italy. Yeah.
And I know that one of them is a professor, because Sylvia says, you're a professor, you can't believe that stuff.
Right,
that's beyond you. Like, I mean, you're beyond that. And he goes into this explanation about Africa, and he says, in every corner of Africa, be it jungle, savannas, village, river, or even in the skyscrapers of our modern cities, a certain fear rides the hot winds, which is actually some nice writing.
Yeah.
An ancient fear with many names.
Black magic, witchcraft, superstition. In our country, there are still certain cults which conduct human sacrifices. The victims are unaware that they have been chosen for these mysterious purposes, but when the time comes, they are either killed or driven mad by means of potions and secret rites. Such practices, of course, take time and patience. They are like a test of man's mental strength over his weaknesses.
Stop! Stop! I hate you! I hate you!
The victim suffers a horrible death by an ancient sacrifice, but such practices require time and patience. They are like a test of man's mental strength over his weaknesses. And then Andy laughs. That's the character's name. He laughs, and then he says, oh, don't take me seriously. I'm just joking with you, Sylvia, or whatever. First of all, I'm not sure that he's painting Africa in the most sophisticated way.
Right.
This is clearly written by some Europeans that are, doing some stereotypical stuff. That said, this is a giallo, and we are expecting some kind of thriller, horror, or something element. And so we're learning, they're projecting that this is going to involve some kind of witchcraft or something.
Right.
Well, Andy also says, we used to eat people, now we study engineering.
Right.
Right. Yeah, I found that scene so interesting, particularly once I got to the end of the film, because even in that scene, her boyfriend says, well, like, in some parts of Europe, we still have folklore that's very similar to that, which I thought was a very interesting counterweight.
Yeah,
because you're right, it doesn't paint Africa in the best of light necessarily, but then they do flip it immediately and say,
that's true.
Well, Europe's not much different than that. Like, actually, when you think about it, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's pretty forward thinking.
Sure, that's a good point.
1970, and of course, by the end of the film, that's what they're all doing. The black and the white people are all participating
Mostly
in a ritual.
white.
Mostly right.
I mean, they're going right for the guts.
Right.
The boyfriend's name is Roberto. Played
that's
by
right.
Mauricio Bonuglia.
Such an Italian name.
Yeah. So to me, this story of this conspiracy to drive this woman mad and then drive her to kill herself and then to eat her, that's really interesting. And I think that is the sort of novelty of the plot is probably where a lot of the love for this film comes from. Like, well, you don't see that every day. My question is, why? Nobody hates, she's not like a bad person. The worst thing I think I see her do is like she's a little demanding on one of the people at the office, where she's like, we need this by such and such a date, and and she's not like yelling or anything, but she's she's a boss. Like
it's because she won't play tennis, Bill.
It's just like, why do these people want to drive this poor woman crazy? Like, what's the point? That's what I never understood when I was watching it. It seems a little absurd to me.
Well, I mean, first of all, I feel like you say you don't see that every day, but we do see this every day. This movie owes everything to Rosemary's Baby, or a movie like The Sentinel, something like that. And I didn't feel like this was particular. I mean, it was not, certainly there's a novel little twist at the end.
Well, I guess it being the whole African witchcraft aspect of it.
Sure, yeah. I
mean, if that's actually what happens, maybe it's European witchcraft that happens. I don't know, but like that's another thing where it's kind of like I'm not sure because they all seem to be doing it. So what is the witchcraft? Because I don't see anybody doing anything with any kind of like paraphernalia. Witch paraphernalia?
Well, there seems to be some angle of witchcraft surrounding the cutting up of photos. Am I wrong about that?
I picked up on that too. There definitely was some sort of ritual, or at least something very personal.
But even Sylvia does that.
Well,
Sylvia
exactly.
does it herself.
Exactly.
But she's not trying to do any witchcraft.
Yeah. So that's, I think that there are a lot of parts of this film that do not cohere. And that is certainly one of them. I mean, it almost feels like there are these elements of her life that are kind of witchcraft adjacent. Like there's literally like the sacrificing of an animal, at some point. Mm-hmm. But there's never a point where the film points to these actions and says, this is all in service of some kind of clandestine organ-eating death cult or whatever the fuck they are. Yeah, it's really strange. I mean, I guess I was struggling to think about, is this movie trying to be about anything? I mean, I
don't think so. What do you think?
Did you come up with anything?
I mean, I think the best thing you could say is it's probably, obviously has a little bit to do with gaslighting and childhood trauma.
Sure.
I don't know if that's what they set out to do when they made it. I think more, for me at least, when I got to the end, it was almost like the filmmakers, kind of what we were just talking about. They were just saying like, I know you think because you're in these cities and you're so modern and everything. Look, she's a scientist. She believes in science and math and the, the natural order things. It's like, yeah, but there's still people out there who believe that like in witchcraft and magic and however illogical it is, they're going to believe that till like their dying breath. And there's just nothing you can do about that.
And maybe even, you too, being the modern, sophisticated, scientific-minded type person can be driven mad by one of these cults or whatever it is. Did you notice that they all wear the same kind of uniform at a certain point?
Yes.
Well,
what was that?
It's messy work. And
That's true.
It wasn't like robes or anything. It seemed like it was like a mechanic's jumpsuit or something. Like, I don't know. They were wearing very strange.
Yeah, like tunics.
Just because they like human sausage doesn't mean that that they want to get their white Italian loafers bloody.
It's a good point. It's a good point. When you add the marinara to the, it's just going to get everywhere. There's going to be a problem. And especially if they're still squirming when you're grabbing their guts.
Sure.
By the way, I mean, just also like on the whole guts grabbing thing, like is it messed up? This tells you how much horror I've consumed now.
Yeah.
That my first thought when they're grabbing the guts is like, you guys are taking a lot of guts. There's like 25 of you. Like you're taking too many guts there, like Chad. Like you need to like
you need to share, Chad.
Like share, okay? You guys worked for like 2 weeks to get this woman to commit.
Listen, the human intestinal system is much longer than
it is long. But you know what? To your point, Matthew, some of them there should have been a knife just placed somewhere nearby where they could have just like, okay, that's my 3 feet of intestine or whatever.
Right.
There's mine, because it does go on for a while. But they're just grabbing whole organs and like taking them away to shoving them in their mouths.
It did seem like there was a hierarchy there. Like there was like somebody that gets first dibs. I can't remember who it was. It was like the guy who's driving a wheelbarrow around at the zoo.
I think.
I
thought it wasn't it
Italian Ed
Roberto?
O'Neill?
Roberto's one of the first because he's like, hey, she was my girl.
Right.
Then there was the not a father-in-law, but her mother's boyfriend, who she saw having sex with her mother when she was a kid, which went nowhere. But anyway.
Well, I want to come back to that. But yeah.
Why would you want to come back to that?
Well, actually, okay. So I was really struggling to try and figure out if this movie is actually about anything. I think that you actually nailed an interesting angle there, Matthew. I guess I was thinking maybe, and this is like a stretch, but maybe it's like an allegory about how like grief and psychic trauma will literally eat you up inside. I thought like maybe they were trying like, but that's the best I could come up with.
Or maybe how people can manipulate you using your trauma and that will get to you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just the imagery of her being devoured whole, I felt like maybe I was trying to connect that to her, whatever her trauma is, but, well, we know what it is.
Well, clearly, yeah, it's that. It's her, she saw her mother having relations with another man that wasn't her father when she was very young, and it really bothered her, understandably, and she never forgot it. And
it bothered me now.
It's pretty graphically shown. I was like, wow, they're really going at it there. Yeah, it just seems to be part of the crux of how we're going to drive her mad. I don't know if she told Roberto about it, and he was like, this is what we're going to go after. We got to find that guy from 30 years ago or whatever that she knew, and make sure that he meets her again, just to really drive it home.
Right, and we don't know. Like the movie is very vague of like. It seems like at first the sex between the mom and the guy is consensual, but there's also this kind of air of like, at the very least, regret that she's very ashamed that she had sex with this man.
Yeah.
Like, she's covering herself afterwards. Like she doesn't want her daughter to see. Like, it's a very shameful thing. This is a affair. And like the guy, of course, we don't know if he's lecherous because we don't know if she is in her mind making him a lecherous like pervert or if he is that.
I feel like he definitely is.
We get the answer later.
I don't think he actually attacked her, but I think he kind of like looms over her and then she scratches him with what was it, a knife or something? Scissors.
Yeah.
And then she runs away.
That's true.
So he kind of gets in her face and then she scratches him and he leaves. Also, something that I don't want to forget, something else happens right after that. That's sort of implied and not shown. Does anybody remember? Or maybe it actually happens later, but because Sylvia sees this as a young woman, she does something to her mother.
Yes. She pushes her off the balcony.
She kills her, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another traumatic thing, obviously.
Right. And it's implied that she as a kid did it and she did it on purpose.
Yes.
Right.
And like, because they say, your mother was like basically impaled on the fence below.
Yep.
So it also could be a lot of guilt about that.
Yes, 100%.
And it's like there's a lot that could be playing into it because these gialli films. I mean, you see the ones like Suspiria and Opera and Blood and Black Lace and like Bay of Blood. Those ones have much more straightforward stories.
Yes,
even if the techniques are a little bit more new wave, so to speak. But a lot of giallo films are like you're supposed to feel it. You're not supposed to like.
Right.
There's no real plot. It's supposed to be like an emotion.
Argento is especially that, right?
Yes.
Like if there's a kind of dream logic where if you actually try to think it through, it doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't matter. That's not the point.
Right.
He doesn't care about plot.
He's like, no, plot is secondary.
Yeah.
And not to give this movie an excuse. I mean,
no.
We got to disseminate it, but.
And actually, that might be my biggest issue is that it seems like it's trying to walk the line between being plot driven and being a tone film. And that's where it gets into trouble, I think.
Yeah. I mean, one of the problems that I had with it, first of all, I think it's beautifully shot. The lighting is fantastic. That's by Mario Massini. It looks gorgeous, excellent lighting. I would like to see more of the DP's films. He just passed away March 13th, 2022, so only a few years ago in Stuttgart, Germany. He won the Palme d'Or at Cannes just a few years after this film with the Taviani brothers' Padre Padrone in 1977.
There you go.
So this is a guy whose work I'd like to become more familiar with. My problem is that even though the lighting is great and there's some great shots, there's not a lot of giallo style. There's not a lot of futzing with the cinematic medium the way that there is in other gialli that I really enjoy. There's not a lot of gelled lighting or things like that I have come to adore about giallo.
I feel like I noticed a little bit of that in her flashback sequences with her mother, and certainly in her apartment, there's that strobing green light in the background.
But do it in the present.
Yeah,
Do it right now.
But I'd like to think that like they're trying to kind of blend those things, but they're just not doing it successfully.
Well, and this is similar to Footprints on the Moon. Sylvia's trauma as a young girl is only superficially touched upon, I feel like. Like they tell us these things that are very traumatic, but the movie doesn't really explore it, and they don't really have the character try to deal with it in a meaningful way. In other words, this happened to her, so they use this, I guess, in part to make her a victim.
Sure.
So it feels like, well, shouldn't we show the main character trying to work through it or explore it in some way that is meaningful so that it's not just sort of this downward trajectory of her sanity?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with some of the problems that Footprints had, which is this is derived from literature. So it's possible that in the book we have that interior monologue going on where we have a window into the way that she's thinking. And it just seems like the film didn't bother to figure out a way to introduce those threads.
Did you feel like it was also lacking a little style in addition to its not tackling topics that are kind of important in a way that's more meaningful?
Yeah, I think I mean, like I said, I think it has them, but it's not quite fully, it doesn't feel like fully realized giallo, which isn't necessarily a bad thing all the time.
No.
But it definitely does not, you can tell it's giallo, but it definitely does not have all the hallmarks of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, I mean, for a movie that is about such a hallucinatory kind of subject, they're not employing the typical techniques that you might use to kind of relay that. Yeah, it's strange. It's a strange entry into the genre, and it's like we said, it's kind of doing this thing where it does want to have like a plot that coheres logically, but it is also it can't. You know, it does have to revert to tone, and you know you see that in moments where, for example, she is hallucinating about murdering several members of this cult, or you know her boyfriend and her neighbor and things like that, and then they're alive at the end, devouring her also.
Right.
And to try and make both modes work, you know, to try and maybe set this as some kind of mystery about some African witchcraft or something, and then to turn around and completely go off the rails that way doesn't seem like it quite fits.
I definitely think that if you're going to, similar with Footprints, if you're going to address such sort of important and rich material, in this case, the trauma that she went through as a child, then delve into it. Show more of that situation and how she reacted as a kid and things like that. Show how she's trying to deal with it in the present. Maybe she's seeing us, you know, I know it wasn't as popular in 1974 or whenever they shot this in 73, but like, you know, maybe she's seeing a therapist, maybe she's talking to a friend about it, maybe she's talking to Roberto about it, which makes sense because then he uses it against her for some reason that we don't know. But at least we know, like, you know, the fact that she's talking about it and that's how he learns about it.
Right. And a lot like Footprints, it seems like this is stuff that's being revealed to her instead of stuff that she's, as you say, is like that she's carrying with her. And you can even see that in, like, they have a scene where there's kind of a gathering with the professors and there's like a psychic that she's talking to.
Yeah.
And
the psychic's in on it. I'm like, why?
Right. And
why?
the psychic seems like she's feeding this information.
Even the psychic's at the end, like she's like drinking the blood off of her fingers. I'm like, what? Why? I'm sorry. I just
no. It's great. I mean, because you're like it completely recontextualizes everything with that, because it's like, did the psychic already know this information about her, and like that's how they find out, or is this reveal? Like, because the movie doesn't let you know if the psychic is a real psychic. The psychic could be real.
It's true.
And they don't tell you.
Sure.
Everything about, I mean, I love how that scene is is shot with the mirrors, because it does give you the sense of like they're connecting to the other side, and there's that kind of like language in it visually. But it's also like that's followed up immediately by the old woman dying, but we don't really see that. We don't know if it's related to anything to the witchcraft or anything. Like we just like, she's dead now, you know? So there are all these questions, but I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying, Colin, and I agree with you with that. It does seem at times at war with itself. It doesn't know if it's going to be a surrealist kind of experimental more storytelling.
Right.
Because if you want to see a very straightforward, like, yeah, there's some surrealist imagery, but this is a very open and shut, like, go watch Opera by Argento. That's a very straightforward giallo,
but much more stylish.
Much more stylish. Possibly my favorite of his, but it's like,
it's great.
It's got a great plot. Like you could take out the style and that would be a very easy plot to follow. And then you have something maybe a little bit more abstract, like a phenomena from Argento.
That movie's bonkers. I love it.
So bonkers. Yeah. It's like now the monkey has a switchblade.
What is this about? It's about a monkey and a guy in the wheelchair, the Donald Pleasance. And then there's this kid in the basement. What's going on? It's like, what is this about?
And she can control bugs.
Yeah. This movie could have done with some of the eccentricity of phenomena, like a little bit. Yeah. It just feels like giallo light to me. Like I don't want my giallo to be like Diet Cola. I want it to be hardcore. Like that's what's great about giallo is like it pushes boundaries stylistically, content-wise. You want to talk about trauma? We're going to talk about trauma. Argento literally has a movie called Trauma. So I mean, it feels like a tepid sort of like, dip your toe in, but don't actually jump in the water kind of giallo in a way. And that's a shame because I do love the lighting in it, and lots of times I think it's beautifully shot. I think Mimsy Farmer's great. It has a lot going for it. I actually loved the score, which also as I said in the previous episode, Nicola Piovani did the score for the last film, and I didn't like that one as much, but I really liked this one a lot. And I think he did a great job, but the ending I thought was well executed. Maybe a few too many organs, like maybe not sure if the human body has like 3 spleens or whatever, but like, it's well executed. So, and I think it is a decent film. It's just the giallo part of it didn't satisfy my giallo urges.
I did notice kind of a giallo trope that is a little bit more subtle. And DM brought up scopophilia in our last episode. Yeah. And I felt like that term applies to this film a lot more than it does to Footprints.
Define scopophilia, could you?
It's just the pleasure of looking.
Okay.
And sometimes the subversive act of looking, depending on who you're asking. If you're reading like a Laura Mulvey essay, she'll say that
the male gaze
leads to things like the male gaze. And certainly that's something that you can definitely see in this film.
I feel like it is like she's splayed out on the table at the end naked.
Oh, yeah.
But even the way the camera is moving, I mean, there's a lot of shooting angles of her through windows and from behind walls and things like this. And that is a trope of the genre. It's trying to kind of instill the sense of voyeurism.
Definitely that and paranoia. I mean, those are tropes of the giallo, the watching things through windows and things like that in order to give that sense of somebody watching.
So I felt like I was getting my fill there, but I take your point. It's not really committing to any particular style over substance technique or anything like that. It's an interesting entry.
It is. I mean, like, you're talking about the voyeurism, like the scene before she kills her mother in a pseudo flashback. She sees her mom through the keyhole, which is implied that's how she saw her mother when she was a kid.
Right.
Also having the affair.
Oh, I didn't catch that. Okay.
I thought it was like, they do have that stuff. The man, the creepy guy who was with her mother, like he's watching through the back of the store and everything. And it's like, it's done with this like kind of slit view.
Yep.
There's that scene where they pass by like the random old man in the park who maybe he appears at the very end. I can't catch it. And he's just like, yes, pretty girls. He's just he's just checking out this, and like they seem to know that he's checking them out, and they just kind of giggle because they think he's just a harmless old man who's like, he's not going to do anything.
Right.
But there is a lot of that. I had a debate with someone about this filmmaking wise, and we were talking about the male gaze. The male gaze is not an inherently bad thing to have in your film because it's a tool like anything else. What are you trying to say by using the male gaze?
Sure.
And there's a really cool thread on Twitter that I remember coming across that basically broke down male gaze into like violence, which was seen a lot in horror, where it's like anything that stabs the woman is seen as kind of penile and sort of a sexual frustration being released.
Yeah.
Or of course there's objectification, where you're just seeing a guy through their eyes, or anything leering at a woman's body, particularly anything that doesn't show her face or anything of that nature. But then there was also stuff like an Oedipal male gaze, where it's like there's a sexual undercurrent, but it's also because this woman is like powerful and has authority over you. And talked about how Spielberg's films, especially after like learning everything about like his relationship with his mother, like a lot of Spielberg films have Oedipal male gaze. Like they talked about Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade, the way that they shoot Elsa.
Yeah.
And the fact that Elsa has had sex with his father. The whole way that movie frames Elsa is in this very kind of like dangerous, like, but also kind of motherly attitude with her, with a male gaze. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I don't know if that's correct, but I like the theory, you know? And that you see that in Giallo. You see there's a lot of male gaze, but I think sometimes when I show it to people, I think they sometimes think that it's all meant to be objectifying of the women in the films. And I'm like, well, not necessarily. You have to think about what this film is trying to say in a genre and a different time period than we're living in now.
Sure.
That's my little soapbox on.
No,
it's good to
get on that soapbox. Yeah, I mean, I do think that it can be easy to get our wheels spinning when we're talking about psychoanalysis, but I definitely think you're right. I mean, there's what are they trying to achieve with it? And again, that's where with this film, it's where we come back to like, what is this film trying to do? And it's okay if it's not trying to do anything. It's perfectly fine if it's just trying to give you a thrill. But because it goes to such, I don't want to even call them surrealist places, because it's not quite surrealist. She's suffering from hallucinations, certainly. And if that's not the case, it's very difficult to tell where fact begins and reality ends. And so, yeah, I guess I'm not sure what I'm supposed to believe is real. And it's not enough of a tone poem to be a tone poem. So,
well, to me, I think what we're supposed to believe is that this woman is, for some reason, experiencing a lot of strange things in her life. And we're supposed to wonder, is it her, or is this actually happening? Is there a conspiracy? Is she just going mad? And, you know, as a kind of antidote to Footprints on the Moon, in fact, she is not mad. They are doing this to her, and they're going to drive her mad using her trauma. There really is a conspiracy. There really are people out to get her. You might say that this is directed at women in some ways, because I think sometimes the different genders need to see their fears displayed out on a screen writ large, and to go through that catharsis.
Yeah, and you know, the parts of the film bear that out. I mean, I believe that the psychic says something to her about the father-in-law figure, that he will be with you for the rest of your life or something like that, or he will always be chasing you, or there's some line like that.
Yeah, I was trying to identify the meaning of that because I wasn't sure.
I think what you were just describing lends itself to that interpretation, is that it is just some kind of an allegory for the trauma of witnessing whatever her mother went through, but then she does also actually go through a pretty graphic rape scene. So he is literally pursuing her as well.
Yeah.
Right.
So it feels like it's trying to walk both lines.
Yeah, that's the most horrible scene probably in the whole movie.
Oh yeah,
when he attacks her.
And it's also the scene that's like there's absence of color. It's in a very stony.
It's like a white floor maybe.
Yeah, white floor. Everything's kind of decaying and everything. It's like, you know, obviously I feel like it's very intentional, very ugly scene. You know, it's a very like, until the rug gets pulled, you are convinced like, okay, either she killed this guy, or because the movie does play with you at one point of thinking that she's just been going around killing everyone.
Right.
And, you know, you're like, wait, is this all in her head? Is she killing innocent people? Is she killing bad people? You know, what is happening here? And that's such a trope that's done in so many horror films, I feel like, for sometimes very well, and sometimes not so well. I think here's, for me at least, firmly in the middle, where it's like some of this works. Yeah. Some of this is also a little too like, I feel like you're not committing to like, okay, if she didn't hit this guy off a brick, well then what happened? Was she just flailing around on the ground for like 30 minutes? Or was she like, you know, was there someone physically there? Like, is it a spirit? You know, I think there did need to be a little bit more clarity on that.
Right. I mean, we certainly see her throw a meat cleaver at her boyfriend and like split her kindly avuncular old neighbor's head open. And, if those are hallucinations, I guess personally, I would have preferred a few more clues. And again, I don't need everything spelled out for me. But in this instance, I felt like I was taking the film at face value until I couldn't anymore.
Yeah.
But I agree with you, Matthew. I think it does fall somewhere firmly in the middle of how effectively it does that stuff.
And it does seem, I think at the end of the day, it seems to be telling us that all the violence that she commits is actually all in her head,
Right.
from what I understand.
Well,
Which
and
is,
certainly her interactions with her younger self have to be in her head.
yeah, for sure. Then the question becomes, well, then is everything that we witness her doing all her imagination? And if so, would it have been good to see her do something in real life that was a bit strange, instead of just seeing her imaginings?
Yeah, I mean, this is always the question. And I do feel like when you see films like this, you're seeing the evolution of that trope and that style. Because if you look at a movie like Smile, which, I'm not going to spoil, but Smile, the whole thing is that like some things she sees are real, some things she sees are not real. But the movie does a good job of like picking and choosing when to show you when a character thinks they're doing something, but it's actually in their head, and how everyone else reacts to it. Because there's also the fear of like the social isolation, the embarrassment, people now think that there's something wrong with you.
Right.
And this movie, because so much of the town is in on it, there's a lot happening with her mentally, but we don't know how much of it is witchcraft, if any of it's really witchcraft, or if it's just this extreme self-hatred that's leading to a mental breakdown.
Yeah, it just seems to be like potent gaslighting. Like, what is the witchcraft?
Right, exactly. Well, and again, maybe there's some clandestine ritual that we don't get to see, but that hurts the film.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
why set it up that way and then not pay it off, right?
Right,
Why
right.
not show us some of that?
But that being said, I mean, I guess you could argue that you do see some little cracks here and there. I really like the shot of her taking a hammer to her mother's grave. I thought that was pretty effective.
Little beetles underneath.
But yeah, we really aren't given a whole set of clues to, as you say, you would like to see them sprinkle some of that into her so-called normal behavior.
Yeah. And to see also some of that witchcraft also sprinkled in, maybe, or hints of it, something, some paraphernalia or something left behind that's like, oh, they're doing things. As you said, there's that photograph, but that's literally only one time, aside from her cutting a picture, cutting somebody out of the picture, which was her mother, I think. Then her mother's boyfriend cuts out, I think, the father.
Yeah.
Doesn't cut her out, cuts the father out. So it's like, okay, so what is the meaning of that? What's the point? Yeah, it just seems unfocused. The narrative seems unfocused in the writing, which actually, let me just bring up, the screenplay is written by Francesco Barilli, the director, and Massimo Diavac. And they mistakenly, on IMDb, credit the source material, a novel with the same title, to Gaston Leroux, who wrote a 1908 novel, as I said, with the same title, but it's unrelated. It's not the same story, so that's just a mistake. So apparently this is an original by these two gentlemen.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
so it's not derived from literature.
No.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
That's just a little snafu in the old IMDb. But do we want to talk about the actors at all? Mimsy Farmer plays Sylvia Ackerman. Interesting. I've never seen Ackerman spelled that way. I'm guessing it's a German name. Don't know. She was in The Road to Selena, 1970. She's in More, 1969, which is interestingly notable because Pink Floyd did the score. If anybody's a Pink Floyd head, they might have More in their arsenal. Of course, if they have Spotify, then they do. Yeah, I liked all the other players. Mauricio Bonuglia was good as Roberto. I liked Joe Jenkins as Andy.
I was interested in the performance of her friend, and actually, is her friend? Are we meant to assume that her friend is the cult's first victim?
I think she is.
That's what I took it as, but I'm not sure.
I think she is. She's not at the end doing any shenanigans. So
and they do have their little black robe ritual more than once in the film. The last time, obviously, is after Sylvia is dead, but they do it before that. It's actually shortly after we see blood on Signora Rossetti's shoes for the first time.
Right.
So the film is not shy about letting us know that there is something afoot.
Right.
No pun intended.
And also, in addition, I would like to say that Francesca, I just think is a big cutie. I know that's not a particularly sophisticated comment, but just the gap in her teeth, the look. And I looked her up, and she's an American model and actress. And I guess she was known for being one of Warhol's stars, one of his factory people. She was also a muse of fashion illustrator Antonio Lopez and fashion designer Karl Lagerfeld.
Wow.
Okay.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
She has a great look.
Leave it to you to connect these dots for us, Bill.
She's got a good face for a model film, but she just has a face that is so interesting to look at. Every time you're on screen, you're just looking at her face because you're like, oh, what's she gonna do? What's she gonna say?
She just has a great face.
And the film tries to cast suspicion on her as well. I mean, the way that she shot it, you're assuming that she's involved,
right?
Well, except there's one hint that she isn't, because I think it's Roberto says that Andy and her start going out, and he says Andy and Francesca went out, I don't know, on a date or something like that, and he's on the phone talking to Sylvia, and he gets off the phone and he gets in the car with Andy, and Francesca isn't there. So it's like something weird's going on. They're planning something. So that's sort of our first indication that Francesca may not be involved in the shenanigans,
right?
In the body part shenanigans. Yeah, I mean, overall for 70s Italian film acting, I thought it was good. I thought they did a good job.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched it. I didn't watch the dub. I watched the subtitled version, and it just seemed very that heightened typical giallo, typical Italian horror style.
Right.
But it never felt like it was too much. Like sometimes the leads in those giallo films can be very annoying, and there's some people just have a bad scream for horror. And Mimsy does not. She has a great scream. Like you believe that she is very distraught and not in a you're like, I feel so bad for this poor woman.
She was really good in this. And I mean, clearly, what you said earlier, Colin, the whole Rosemary's Babies parallel. I mean, they seem to be writing off of some of the success of that and thinking that, maybe they can do their own. Yeah. And she definitely has a kind of Mia Farrow-esque look to her.
Yeah. Yes, very much so.
Like an attractive muskrat. She does. I am a little.
Not sure that's flattering, but
I mean it in a very nice way. Both Mia and Mimsy. No. She's very fetching. Except, and I'm sorry to keep referencing our past episode, but she also has slightly upsetting 70s hair. Now it's not as bad as
not as bad.
Not as bad.
But yeah, I think she did a really good job, Mimsy Farmer. I'm not really familiar. This is my first movie, I think, that I've ever seen with her in it, and I liked her.
I believe same for me as well.
Yeah, she's definitely got a presence.
Let's go into some of the behind the scenes, could we, for a moment?
Yeah, please.
Produced by Giovanni Bertolucci, who I'm not sure if he's related to Bernardo Bertolucci, but he may be, and here's why. Because the director is Francesco Barilli, who was the star of Before the Revolution, Bertolucci's second film. So this director is actually quite an experienced actor and goes into directing. He makes this film, and I'm guessing that this fellow who produced is probably related to Bernardo. That would be my guess. Shot in 8 weeks, starting on July 9th, 1973. The studio's Euro International Films, which seems to be an Italian-France joint. It's distributed by Euro International. Released March 29th, 1974 in Italy. It runs 101 minutes. I think the producing of this film is actually pretty slick. It looks good. Mm-hmm. I don't have any complaints. Sometimes you see a giallo and it looks like it's kind of falling apart in the projector. This one seems to have a healthy budget to keep everything going.
Yeah, I would be... I can't go on without actually addressing one thing.
Yeah.
They're really unconvincing at their representation of the sex act.
Oh, yes. Oh, I'm glad you brought that up.
She is like rocking back and forth and he's just kind of like...
What are you guys talking about?
Yeah, well, listen, when a man and a woman love each other very much.
Yes.
No, that was
yes,
really
Colin.
upsetting.
Keep going.
watching them screw was very upsetting.
He's like gyrating, but like in this weird circle 8 motion.
Yeah, they're like rocking side to side.
He's got some technique.
No,
what's the problem?
No,
what's the problem?
No, not buying it. I'm not buying it.
Oh man, who knew? The lovemaking critics over here.
I'm just saying. Whatever.
What about the boyfriend of the mother? Is he?
Well, he was just an aggressive humper, and I can believe that.
That is aggressive humping. I agree.
But I can believe it. Now I'm not saying he's got technique either.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
He's literally the absence of technique.
No, yeah, exactly. In fact, if anything, if you're reading that expression on the mother's face, I don't know if it's shame about the daughter witnessing the act. I just think that she's like, oh, I thought this would be better.
She's like,
She's
that
like,
would
"That's
suck.
it?"
You like betray your spouse and the sex isn't
Yeah.
good. That would feel like, oh man, I mean,
Right.
if I was gonna do it.
She's just upside down looking at her daughter like, yeah, I guess it is pretty embarrassing.
Well, actually, let me ask you guys this. So Sylvia is having these, either they're hallucinations or some kind of a elaborate witchcraft or whatever it is. But she is seeing these visions of her mother. And we do see...
Her mother is the titular perfume of the Lady in
That's
Black.
what I wanted to ask you about. Does the perfume represent anything? Is it important at all? Or is it just a weird detail that
I
they
think
honed
it's-
in on because they needed a title?
I think it's very superficial.
Yeah.
I think obviously, you know, she toward the end of the movie, Sylvia also puts on the perfume or a perfume. They never mention the name of a perfume, so there's no like tie-in like this was my mother's perfume or whatever.
And I gotta say, when we see her mother applying this perfume, she is like really spray painting.
Bathing in it, yeah, and Sylvia does too. She's,
I mean,
maybe she
perfume
was,
and
maybe she was stinky.
Maybe it is Italy.
listen, Italians don't need to shower as much, and this is why.
I mean, perfume and cologne is meant to
Just
be.
kidding.
It's meant to be discovered, not announced. That's my rule.
Yeah,
Anyway.
I'm part Italian,
Ooh.
I'm part Italian, so I can joke about it.
Yes. Likewise.
So I don't.
I took Italian in college.
There you go.
Yeah, that works.
I give
That
you
applies.
permission.
No, I'm not gonna try that.
So you know, we were talking earlier. We went through the story. We've gone through the characters. Is there anything that this movie is trying to say other than that's messed up?
I mean, I really think and I think I'm being generous. I tried to think of some. I really tried to think of this as like a story about that's figuratively resembling somebody who's devoured whole, and that act of devouring is like some kind of a metaphor for what
Psychologically
grief does
devoured.
for you. Yes.
I like that. I like that.
I don't know if it's true.
I think you might be stretching, but I think it's actually a very intelligent way to look at it.
Oh shucks.
I think you have a lot of credence with that, yeah. Because I mean, when you're making something like that, there's got to be some sort of vision in mind. I mean, it's a very deliberate act. I mean, they are all up in her point out.
Yeah.
Like it's the way that she's cut open, the way it's shot, the way they get. I mean, like they're in there.
Yeah.
Like hands full. Like, you know, this is obviously pre-COVID, so they can just put their hands in there. Everyone's sharing. Yeah. But it's like. There's definitely something deliberate. Maybe
pre-COVID, so they can share. Thank you,
go.
Matthew. Thank you for clarifying. They should have had masks and gloves, but you know,
at least gloves. I mean, come on. I mean, that's like I'm thinking of all the wrong things as eating this woman.
Kids, if you're going to be a cannibal, wear your masks, wear your gloves.
You know,
yeah, be sanitary.
Use a knife.
Get your shots.
Use a knife. Don't use your teeth.
yeah,
come on, don't be an animal.
It's all the wrong stuff. I feel like they're not sharing enough. I feel like they're not putting. This is not clean. How they're doing this.
Definitely not sharing. Well, it also looks like some people are going back for seconds.
Yeah.
How much
At the
is
end,
in this woman?
I know. She seems to, like I said, 3 spleens. I don't know what's going on.
I mean, I noticed like as they're kind of wrapping up, they're like literally grabbing like it looks like they're grabbing chunks of her arms and stuff like that. I mean, I actually thought it would be really effective, and you know, there's a lot of things you can do in hindsight, but I thought it would have been really effective if like maybe just the head rolls off the table at the end, you know, like just you know. Anyway,
good, Colin. Good.
yeah.
I like it.
Or maybe one of them runs away with the intestines, and like it just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. And you just see it unveling for the next 3 minutes. You know,
Like a Looney Tunes
Yeah.
like level of like sausage links
right?
just going out.
Yeah. Boop, 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 with like funny sound effects.
They tried it in Hannibal and didn't work.
Yeah.
That's true. They couldn't make it work. Who no one's gonna.
If the great Ridley Scott can't make it work. Who among us?
So I mean, to some degree, it almost seems to be promoting paranoia because literally everybody
sure.
is eating this woman at the end, and I have no idea why. You know, it goes back to Andy's quote about throwing something in the face of evil. You know, are they challenging evil by being more evil? Is that the idea? And like she just happens to be an opportune victim.
I mean, I think Matthew might have had it right with his interpretation. It's trying to challenge the idea of magic and clandestine things that happen in places that we can't see them being real, you know, or maybe it's like trying to challenge the idea that everything you see on the surface is not exactly as it is. Because if it's those other things that we just described, it's really clunky.
Which, you know, hey, it's interesting because she's not a typical sacrifice. Like you mentioned earlier, she's not like this mean woman who like everyone wants to get rid of.
She's like the sweetest.
She's so sweet, but she's also not virginal. I mean, we talked about the bad weird gyrating sex. But it's not over the top. There is a certain, obviously there's a scene of the assault, but that's an hallucination. The scenes she has with other people, even her boyfriend, are not overly erotic, particularly for a giallo film. Like there's that scene where she's playing tennis with the guy and she like her hand gets pricked,
right,
and he like sucks the blood,
right.
And at first it looks like she's into it, but then she's not into it,
right,
and she's like very weirded out by it. So there's the movie does not commit to like
right.
Why her? There doesn't seem to be a reason why they pick on this particular woman.
I mean, it's like
other than maybe that she's vulnerable. Sorry,
right.
No. I mean, I think there is that, but also she does have this past transgression. I mean, she did murder her mother.
That is true.
So I maybe if we could have seen her wrestling with that.
Well, whoa, were they all buddies of her mother or something?
Well, that's. I mean,
only the boyfriend really has a clear motive. Everybody else, it's like, well, how did you know her mother? What's your problem?
I mean, it almost feels like they're merging two movies. Like they had in mind a supernatural thriller about like these apparitions that she's seen from her past and the murder of her mother, and then there's also this story about witchcraft and Mr. Humpy.
They're pretending to make a genre film about something, and they're not, in my opinion, either making a sufficiently giallo and not a sufficient dig into what they're making the film about. And so it winds up being all aspartame.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
But that said, it does have nice things. Like I said, nice lighting. Farmer's a great vulnerable character, slowly devolving into madness. The final slip into total madness also could have maybe been more like the transition is kind of, it feels very sudden in a way. I don't know, like all of a sudden they've surrounded her. She's on a table. We do see her supposedly kill a bunch of people, but it just all seems to happen within like 5 minutes. Like it's very you know, instead
of the biggest like indicator of her having transition into madness is, you know, like her hair is like flared out and her clothes are dirty. There's a great shot though, I will say. I did love when she's just plunking people down on that glass table.
Yes.
That is fun.
That is a fun shot.
That was pretty good. So it's worth it for moments like that, but it's it's kind of a mess. I don't know. I mean, would you guys recommend this movie to people? I would
recommend it, I think. I would just say if you want to kind of dip your toe into giallo, this is a good film to do that with.
I'm pretty much with you. I think if you're a fan of the genre or you're interested in the genre, but you're not ready to get the more intense bonkers, like I wouldn't show someone Phenomena first and be like, this is giallo. And they'll be like, what is that?
I don't even know if that's giallo.
Well,
like, what is that?
Who knows? I don't think Argento knows.
Yeah.
And I say that with all respect to the king.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. But it's also not like, yes, it deals with some more like quote unquote sleazy topics like ritual sacrifice, like sexual assault, but it's never done in a very voyeuristic or demeaning way. Like, you know, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
it should be probably.
It should be, yeah. But it's also not like let's just have her be naked for no reason in
the
scene and like show it. Like it's a very like, even when she's naked at the end on the like as just like the slab on this table, it's like, it's meant to be like a sad thing. It's not meant to be like, look, you finally get to see her naked.
It doesn't feel like exploitative at all.
Yeah. So maybe someone who's a little bit, you know, a little more green on that would be more okay with it. Even though I think it's such the plot is, it falls apart the moment you put any sort of weight on it, you know.
Which is understandable, you know, with a lot of giallo. The problem is it just doesn't have the style and the kind of rush that like a great giallo gives you. And so it doesn't have that to carry it past all of the story points that don't make sense.
We wouldn't be getting lost in those things if we had that substance to lean on.
Right. If somebody wants to break down Suspiria and the logic of it, the first thing that one has to say is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Right.
But, you know, that's not the point. But in this one where they're taking they're sort of gingerly tiptoeing around these subjects of trauma, etc. You're like,
some of which are very realistically rendered.
Yeah. If you're going to show us a disturbing sexual attack, then, you know, dive into, you know, the effects and the reasons, the motives, etc.
Yeah. Do you know, Matthew, is this like considered like a seminal giallo film, or is it just pretty much forgotten or at least obscure?
It's definitely one of the lesser
known.
Yeah. It's not like something that gets brought up a lot. I've talked to some giallo heads, and this movie's never come up. I had heard of it. I've seen the poster for it, but I had never watched it until preparing for this episode.
Yeah.
And I've watched a lot of Giallo.
Yeah, well, okay.
So
It's good to know where it falls in, I guess.
Just briefly, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the production designs by Franco Velci. The locations I thought were great. They're Rome, Lazio, Italy, including Mincio Square. And, well, it's all, I mean, at least for me as an American who's never been to Italy, it's always nice to see Rome on the big screen.
Sure.
And probably gets boring for Romans, but I eat it up. I love it. Production design's nice. It contributes to the nice cinematography. The costumes are mostly good. The costs, again, going back to the I guess you could call them a cult or a conspiracy. The conspiracy of Cannibal's costume is kind of amusing to me.
What a statement.
I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. Those are by Piero Ciccoletti. Yeah. Well, anything else, gentlemen, about this film?
You know, one little tiny thing that just like really, in a funny way, stood out to me is the scene where she goes to the zoo and she's with the neighbor and he's like taking the pictures and he's like having the timing and everything. And I thought that was going to come back to play in some way because he has these pictures and you talked about the pictures and like there's these motifs with the photos and I thought like we're gonna find out like there's gonna be like a wall of all these women that are like this is next.
Oh, cool idea.
Yeah,
Yes.
it just never. But
What a great idea.
Right, myself as a filmmaker, I was like, let me write that down. They may have dropped the ball.
Or at least
Why
like
do you have all these pictures of all these women on your wall?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah.
you say you're a fashion photographer?
What?
But yeah, I mean, like, or at the very least, a scene where the professor is like stabbing the eyes out of the picture or something. You know, like just anything. Yeah, you're right. That doesn't come back around.
Such a quirky scene, and it has no. Well, I guess it doesn't pay off as the zookeeper is in on it, but I guess I don't know. Maybe symbolically, she's in a cage and she doesn't know it. I don't know, but I think I'm maybe giving a little bit too much credit.
Probably.
They were probably just like, well, we have access to the zoo for a day, so let's go shoot there. It'll look interesting.
Italian Ed O'Neill and put him in the scene.
Is that the older guy you're talking about?
The weird zookeeper. We see him a lot throughout the film, but he doesn't really have any other.
Zookeeper? Is he at the end too?
He's part of the cult.
Holy smokes.
And we see him throughout the film, but I guess that's his job. I mean, that's where he's like really, that's what the only time they're kind of in the same scene together.
Yeah.
I do want to shout out to the guy who played Rossetti. That's the older kind of lecherous man who, gross, but
the neighbor.
But I found him, I liked his face. He had an interesting, his name's Mario Scaccia.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there was something pleasing about him, even though he was playing a gross old man.
He looked familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen him and stuff, but I'm not sure from where. Let's wrap this up. What are 3 films that you've seen recently, Matthew, old or new, that you'd like to suggest the audience check out?
Oh man, this is like I was wrapping my head around this for like the last few weeks. Like, which ones did I say?
You don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, don't judge me too hard. If
they don't have to be the best movies you've ever seen or anything.
I was just thinking, okay, what have I watched recently? And I went to see in theaters the Looney Tunes film, The Day the Earth Blew Up. It's the first ever fully animated, full-length Looney Tunes film, and it's fun and it should be seen, and the animators worked really hard on it, and you could tell they got to do so much stuff they've been itching to do with the 2D animated space.
Do you get the sense that they're dumping that film?
Oh, I felt that way. I mean, Ketchup Entertainment, I also know that they didn't have a lot of money for marketing, and so they bought it to save it. I think otherwise it was going to become a tax write-off. And so they pretty much preserved this film and made sure that it still got to see the light of day. So I have nothing but love for them, even though they really have to just go on word of mouth.
I've heard good things.
This is in addition to Acme versus Coyote, right? Because that's another one that got shelved.
That one got shelved. That one's
and they're trying to buy that too.
Ketchup is trying to buy it.
Coyote versus Acme. Excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah, Ketchup, the same company.
Okay,
they're trying to buy Coyote versus, and apparently Warner Brothers is interested. Selling it.
Well, yeah, because they already got their write-off, so now
What's
they can.
The big deal? I don't understand why they spend all this money. They go through all this trouble, and they're like, nah.
It's all for cynical tax reasons. It's nothing more profound than that, sadly.
Just looking at a spreadsheet and just saying, well, I guess we can get rid of this one.
Okay, so you recommend The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie?
Yes. My dad recommended this movie to me because he had seen it on TCM. And he asked me to watch it, and it's called Grand Prix. It's from 1966. If you've not seen it, it is really fun. It stars James Gardner, and it follows 4 different race car drivers during the championship, and their different lives and the pressures they're on and their romantic relationship. A young Jessica Walter is in this movie. And it's just a movie. Like I thought about it a lot because that F1 movie with Brad Pitt is coming out soon. And it's very much, it looks like it'd be a spiritual successor of this film.
That makes sense.
And it's just got that 60s charm to it, man. I mean, it just, the way characters talk, the way sound crinkles as people walk into a room, you know, I mean, it just has it. And it's one of those, it won 3 technical Oscars, like sound and I think cinematography, stuff like that. It's beautifully shot, beautifully rendered. So if you get a chance, check it out.
I just looked it up, and it's Frankenheimer.
Yeah,
John
Frankenheimer. I forgot to say it. John Frankenheimer. Yeah.
Nice.
So one of my favorite directors. So it was really cool to see. I'd never seen this film, but I pretty much liked everything.
What's your favorite Frankenheimer movie?
It's either Ronin or Seconds.
Okay, mine's The Train, but I do like
that's a good
Seconds.
one.
Ronin I like. My problem with Ronin is that it came out right around the time of Heat, and it felt like it felt like they're kind of like competing with each other, and I always have to choose Heat. But
that is fair.
But I mean, it's a cool movie. Ronin is a cool movie.
Yeah, and it's so the third one. I wrestled with this because I was like, do I choose a movie that I had seen in theaters? And that's Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag. Oh. Amazing production design. Yeah. I mean, out of this world production design is
I'm
in
going
that
right
movie.
after this, actually.
Oh, really? That's great. Yeah. I think you'll like it. I mean, it's very Soderbergh, but it's 90 minutes and it's tight, but you don't feel rushed and you feel like you got a lot, and there's like no exposition dumps. It just breathes. There's these great scenes that happen at dinner tables and in bars, and you're just so enamored. It's a great cast. It's very funny. It's also very sexy. And Cate Blanchett and Michael Fassbender have a great chemistry. But what I like about this movie in particular is that so often Hollywood has this weird thing. They hate married couples. They really hate married couples. And it was refreshing to see a movie where you believe that this married couple is married. And there's conflict because it's, you know, I'm not going to spoil anything, but he has to decide, like, if my wife is a spy for the other side, do I turn her in? And it's so fascinating, and there's a lot of really cool, and it's despite its eroticism and everything, there's a wholesomeness to it all. Even the very depraved relationships have a wholesomeness to them, and so I recommend it. I just think it's old-fashioned filmmaking. It's something that 2 years from now, it's going to be playing on TNT before an NBA Finals game. And everyone's going to be like, why didn't I see this in theaters? This is really cool. And it's like, you know, go out and see it if you get a chance.
Support your local theaters, guys.
Exactly.
Yeah. Support Soderbergh. He very rarely does bad work.
He's the man.
Yeah, it's very true.
Do you have any other projects? I know you have Bloody Bloody Coda. Are there any other projects that you're working on that are going to be coming out that people can look out for?
Yeah, you mentioned at the beginning, we just entered post-production on Magdalena, which is not a horror film, even though I do have a little horror sequence in there because she has a traumatic childhood. Funny, coincidentally enough.
Okay.
And I did a little bit of giallo stuff with how she interprets that.
Okay.
Very similar to this movie. But then also, I'm going to be directing a feature film called Pioneers, written by Maria Cano. And it's we're still in the process of funding. We just got a couple of people to sign letters of intent and everything. We're hoping this gets fully funded. I really want to direct this film. It's going to be about a little north of $2 million is the budget. Yeah. And that should be shooting later this year. If everything holds, that should be shooting later this year. And I'm really excited for it. So that's kind of the next big venture.
Excited to see it, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
How can people find out more about you or your projects?
Yeah, you can follow me on all my social media is Robinson is Hyde, ROBINSONIS Hyde, HYD. And are
you saying you're a Jekyll and Hyde?
Yeah, it's a nickname from college. I was a very mild mannered, like the man you see before you. But then I would get drunk. I became not a bad guy. Just I was more like bold and confident, unfiltered, very honest and blunt. And everyone's like, "Oh, it's like you take this elixir and you become a different person." And I would talk to people and they're like, "Oh, I hope Hyde comes to this party." And I'm like, "I'm Hyde," and they're like, "What? No?" And I'm like, "No, that's me. Robinson is Hyde," and that's how I ended up.
Wow.
Anyway. The lore of my username. I'm sure my mother loves that. That's where it came from. But yeah, you can find me there. there. And then I have a website, MatthewSRobinson.com. That's where you can learn about my recent project and where I'm speaking. I do line producing services, so that's on there as well. And somehow surviving, doing freelance, even through the strike and everything for the past few years. So it's been good to kind of...
I knew there was one out there.
Barely.
Holy smokes.
It's, I'm eating cold ramen, Okay. I don't have the money for the heat, so I just wait for it to get soggy enough. Just eat it.
Wow, that's hardcore. This episode is sound engineered by Colin Dixon, edited and mixed by William Budell. This was produced by William Budell and Colin Dixon. Original music composed by Michael Riola. Recorded at Boo's Hollywood Dell in beautiful Hollywood, California. If you'd like to contact us with comments, suggestions, or high praise, email us at cosmicmotionshow@gmail.com or send us a voice message at speakpipe.com/Cosmic Motion. You can find us on the socials at Cosmic Motion or Cosmic Motion Show. Emails, messages, audio, or other media you send us may be featured on the program. We want to thank our guest, Matthew S. Robinson.
Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Thanks to my amazing co-host who is definitely not trying to drive me mad and eat me, Colin.
Stay away from that third spleen, folks.
Thank you, listener, for joining us for this episode. We look forward to exploring the cinematic cosmos with you in the future. Until then, keep learning, growing, and creating.
Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
This podcast takes no shortcut in producing outstanding content. How they haven't become more widely recognized is beyond me.
I love this show. Smart commentary, in-depth interviews, and great production.
It's obvious how serious these guys take their podcast and bring that next level of professionalism that anyone would be hard-pressed to match.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.